Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
Alrighty, welcome and cheers, everyone. As I say with my big ass Yeti mug that I've got here filled with ice cold water. One sec, little sippy sip to kick this Minisode off. And yeah, so welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Minisode number 9 on the More Than Fitness podcast. And today's topic is something that anybody who is trying to gain muscle mass, lose body fat, get stronger, and just improve their overall general health has questions about, right? And so today's topic is going to be everything that you need to know about cardio. I actually had a friend recently. He's more of the cardio guy. I'm definitely more of the lifting guy, and I haven't been on a formal run in a very long time. And the other day I went back home. He still lives in my hometown, and I went back home and he was like, "Hey, dude, just like let's meet up. Let's get a run in. We'll run around the park, right?" And I went home and I was like, reluctantly, he talked me into agreeing to going on this run, and it was like, cool, let's just do a lap or two around the park, and that'll be it. And I was like, I can do that. That's totally fine. Well, you fast forward to literally like halfway through the first lap, and I was like, oh my God, I am dying. I lift weights literally at least 4 times a week. And then I was going on this run and I was like, oh, I'm completely out of shape and a fat piece of shit. Right. But yeah, he was, and then even more so, me and this guy used to play football together, and we've been friends for a very long time. And we're both competitive, of course. And so we get done with like the first or second lap. He's like, come on, dude, let's just do one more. He's like, you can do one more. And I was like, of course, I don't want to be a pussy. So of course I said yes. And then so we ended up doing another freaking lap. And I can't show my weakness, right? And so I'm toughing it out and I run through, and then we say our goodbyes and stuff. And then I go home, and I just remember aching for the rest of the day. I could barely walk literally the rest of the day because my ankles were hurting, my hip flexors were hurting, so many different tendons and ligaments and parts of my body that I thought, again, I lift weights all the time. I feel like I'm a pretty fit person. And yeah, no, running really just humbled me. So that was my kind of wake up call that maybe I should move a little bit more on a daily basis. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about today, because some people, they hate cardio just like me. And there's something that they think that they necessarily have to do if they're trying to lose body fat. And that's simply not the case. So I've got a few questions here that I just want to run through that'll make the structure of this easy, because this could be an hour-long podcast in itself, but I'm going to try and rush through these and try and give you guys as much value as possible in the limited amount of time that I have. So the very first question that everyone asks is, should you do cardio? And for fat loss and muscle gain, it's for either objectives, it's definitely not necessary. Just because you're trying to lose body fat doesn't mean, okay, I automatically need to cut calories and I automatically need to start doing cardio. It's just not the case. In strictly fat loss terms, right? Because obviously cardio has tons of cardiovascular benefits as far as general health goes. So everybody should probably do some form of cardio in the sense of just walking around, getting your steps in, whatever, hitting the 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day. That's a good starting point for a lot of people as far as keeping your cardiovascular activity up, or just walking on a treadmill, walking on an incline, something like that. Nothing crazy. You don't have to be Lance Armstrong out here riding a bike around your city. But for both of them, they're not necessary. I've had plenty of clients that I work with their fat loss goals, and they haven't done any cardio at all, but they've lost pounds and pounds of fat. And if your goal is fat loss, you have to use cardio as a tool. And if, again, putting this strictly in terms of fat loss, cardio burns calories. You run, you jog, you walk, you ride the bike, you're just burning calories. So you know that if we're trying to lose body fat, we need to create a caloric deficit. So we need to burn more calories than we're consuming. And you can do that by either eating fewer calories or moving more. It's as simple as that. But the thing is there's going to come a point in your diet where lowering your calories more through food, increasing your caloric deficit by reducing the amount of food you eat is going to be hard. Because let's say you're already eating 1,600 calories a day and you're already struggling with your hunger and things like that at that amount. So the next logical thing to do is to, okay, instead of reducing your calories by 100 each day, why not instead just add in a little bit of cardio? Maybe 20 minutes of cardio 3 or 4 times a week. And that's going to allow you to create a larger caloric deficit without taking away food. So again, it's just a tool to use. But again, there's a spectrum here. And if you start to overuse it, that's whenever you're going to start to run into some issues as far as muscle retention and muscle gain goes, right? Because, and to move into if your goal is muscle gain and you're trying to incorporate some cardio, again, definitely not necessary. You could do it for just general health benefits, but whenever you're trying to gain muscle, you're going to be in a caloric surplus for the most part. And it's like doing cardio and burning more calories is only going to make reaching that goal of a calorie surplus harder, right? So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot and just making it harder for yourself. Or let's say that you're like a fat piece of shit and you just want to eat food all the time. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of cardio to kind of counterbalance my excess caloric intake. But again, as I'm going to get into, cardio actually doesn't burn as many calories as people think. So that's another thing that you have to be careful of. And also there's such thing as the interference effect. And so whenever you do cardio, it's you're working your aerobic energy systems. So these are your energy systems that are dominating for the most part whenever you're doing endurance type exercises. So i.e. running and not lifting. But then you have lifting, which is anaerobic, and this is going to be short bursts of energy use, right? You're going to have an interference effect between these two because your body's trying to become efficient at both of these things, and you're kind of pulling it in both directions. So it's going to be mediocre in both of them. So it's not necessarily going to hurt your muscle gain or you're going to lose muscle or get fat or anything like that. It's just going to slow down the rate at which you can gain muscle, or if you're in a caloric deficit, retain the muscle mass that you already have. So you have to be careful about adding in too much cardio. So the minimum effective dose is going to be your best bet. And for some people, you just like doing cardio. And whenever I say cardio, this could be outdoor activities. You could go hiking and everything like that. But you just have to remember, if lifting is most important, if you're mostly focused about gaining muscle, you have to be careful about how much extracurricular activities you're actually putting in. This could be basketball. This could be hiking. This could be jogging around the park. This could be circuit training, whatever it is that floats your boat. You just have to be careful of that because of the interference effect. Okay, next up is, okay, so you do want to do cardio. What type should you do? So you have low intensity steady state, which is basically walking. Then you have moderate intensity steady state, which is like jogging. And then you have high intensity interval training, which is just running and sprinting, right? Here's the thing. They all work. Right? Don't get caught up in the weeds about trying to figure out which one is the best, because the research has been pretty clear that they all work just about the same whenever everything is matched, right? But here's the thing. The only thing is with high intensity interval training, which a lot of people feel like a badass whenever they do, and that's cool and all. However, you do have to understand that if you're doing HIIT, it's going to affect your recovery more. I mean, it's just simple whenever you think about it. Sprinting is going to be harder on your recovery than walking is going to be, right? So that's something that you have to take into consideration. So if you work out like a maniac in the gym, maybe doing HIIT training on the side on your off days or something like that is actually counterproductive to what you're trying to do. If you work out like a maniac, it might be a good idea to actually do some walking to supplement what you're doing in the gym, and vice versa. If you don't break a lot of a sweat in the gym, maybe interval training could be good for you. Let's say you only go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week. Well, then your recovery is probably going to be okay, right? Then you can add in some more HIIT training and stuff like that. But for the most part, if you're going to the gym 4, 5, 6 times a week already and lifting weights, your fatigue is already going to be pretty high. So you don't want to add on top of that more cardio, right? More HIIT cardio. So in that case, I would stick with walking. And just this could be anything. As far as cardio equipment goes, again, it doesn't matter. The only thing I would choose the bike. That's great because there's not a lot of eccentric loading there. You're just pedaling forward, right? So it's going to be very easy on your muscles and your joints, and then also your overall fatigue. It's not going to be very fatiguing. The incline treadmill is another one that I love. The elliptical is great. The rower is great. I would not advise running and sprinting. I wouldn't advise running and sprinting for most people because most of your running form is dog shit. So I know there's a lot of wannabe athletes out there that want to be functional and athletic and everything, and sprinting sounds cool. However, let's remember what the goal is here. You're not, trying out for the NFL. So let's relax a little bit and prevent injury. That's going to be way more important than killing yourself by sprinting or something. But some of you can sprint and you do enjoy sprinting. And if that's the case, I would at least advise sprinting up a hill. That's going to be a little bit easier on your joints. It's going to be harder overall without trying to kill yourself, right? And yeah, it's just going to be a safer form of performing that exercise. So run up a hill or sprint up a hill. That would be a little bit better. But the bottom line is choose whichever cardio modality you enjoy the most and that you can stick to the longest, and just do that. That'll be totally fine. And then as far as how much you should do, of course, this is going to be very dependent for a lot of people. But again, the amount of calories that you burn doing cardio is going to be much less than a lot of people think. So for example, if you're an 180-pound person doing 60 minutes of moderate intensity cardio, so the entire hour you're doing a moderate intensity cardio, so you're jogging at a pretty hefty pace this entire hour, you're going to burn about 486 calories, which is still solid, right? If you can jog for that, like me jogging for an hour, like I could laugh at that. Like there's no way that's going to happen. You're going to burn 486 calories. It's like, or you could just skip out on eating those couple chocolate chip cookies after dinner, and then you would have the same effect. So it's much more efficient to focus on your diet for fat loss as opposed to just adding in more cardio as far as time efficiency goes, because it takes you 30 seconds to choose to not to eat that donut, but it takes you an hour to burn off those same amount of calories that are in that donut, right? So that's something that you definitely need to consider when choosing how much cardio you do based off of how many calories you're trying to burn on a daily basis. So definitely choose wisely what you want to put your emphasis on. And just as a few rapid fire cardio questions. So when should you do it? I recommend doing it post-workout or on rest days. Again, this is going to decrease that interference effect. If you work out before the gym, or if you do cardio before the gym, then your workout is going to suffer. Your performance isn't going to be as good in the gym, of course, because you're tired from the cardio you just did. So if you could, save it for post-workout, and even better, space it 6 hours apart from your actual workout, or do it on a rest day. The further apart that you can get it from your actual training session, the less that you have to worry about it interfering with anything. All right, next is which is better, fasted or fed cardio. Again, lots of research has been done on this. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Whichever one that you want to do and you feel better doing, I would do that. However, if you want to retain as much muscle mass as possible, I would say that having a small meal, maybe just like a protein shake and a banana or something like that before you go in and do the cardio, is probably going to be the better choice. And also, if you're hungry and you're starving or whatever, and you're trying to do cardio, your performance isn't going to be as good. Think about sprinting with a bagel in your stomach or some oatmeal or something compared to absolutely nothing, right? And you say you're starving and you're trying to sprint at full speed. Your performance is probably going to be a little bit better whenever you have the fuel source readily available. Okay, can cardio build muscle? If you're a beginner to lifting weights, or you're an older person and you just don't have much muscle to begin with, yes, it's very possible that cardio could create enough of a stimulus to your muscles to build them up. However, for most of you listening to this, it's highly unlikely. And so if you're doing the stair stepper or something like that to create muscle mass, or if you're trying to do HIIT to build your legs, I would highly recommend to focus on your leg training as opposed to the cardio that you're doing. Again, these are your you're making it much more difficult on yourself in a less efficient manner to accomplish a goal that would be easier doing something else. Does walking count as cardio? Yes. And it's my most recommended form of cardio. If you're going to start doing cardio, just start walking outside. And even better, stay off your phone, look around, enjoy yourself, try to clear your mind. And so, yeah, that can be super healthy for you. So the battle ropes, the kettlebell circuits, do those work? And yet, of course they do work, but you have to remember that they will affect your recovery more. So if you're lifting tons of weight and then you try and stack that on top of it, again, you're gonna have some issues there. So just be careful of that. And your risk of injury is obviously going to go up higher as well if you're doing circuit training and you're lifting weights, and your form could start to fail because you're so tired from the entire circuit. So that's something that you have to consider as well. Do I burn more fat if I wear a hoodie and sweat a lot? The answer is no. You just sweat more and you increase your risk of dehydration and passing out. Sure, you can lose some water weight. So in the short term, yeah, you might lose a little bit more weight. However, as soon as you start eating carbs again, you're going to put that water weight right back on. As soon as you start eating food again, not just carbohydrates, you're going to start putting some of that water weight back on. So it's just like, don't worry about your water weight because that doesn't matter. It's going to fluctuate. Instead, focus on fat loss. Okay, I think that's just about it. So what's your thoughts on programs like Orange Theory and Cycle? I think they're great if those are the only workouts you're doing, but they aren't going to be optimal to building or retaining muscle mass if that's your main goal, because again, they're super hard to recover from. If you're only lifting 2 or 3 times a week, sure, you can sprinkle those in. You enjoy doing them, more power to you. However, if you think that that's going to build tons of muscle mass and be a great supplement to a program of doing 4 to 5, 6 lifting days per week, I would highly reconsider you doing that. And that should be it. So I hope that has helped you with a lot of your cardio questions. I'm sure there's plenty more that I didn't cover. If you have any questions, please send me a DM, send me an email, and I'd be happy to help. But that is Minisode number 9 on the More Than Fitness podcast. And thank you, as always, for listening.